And about what time did you get interested in robots and things that move?
Oh, I was always into robots. You know, the robots were, well, no, I can't say I was always into robots. I was into robots from Forbidden Planet on. That was when Robbie the Robot first appeared. And he was the friendly robot. You know, all robots before that were like killer robots. But Robbie was the friendly robot who would mix drinks for you and things like that. And I remember going with my parents to the movie theater because they had a big promotion. You could get coupons on the back of Quaker Oats boxes, you know, the round box that they used to have those. And so I remember at least some of the children got in with Quaker Oats free passes. In any case, the movie, a lot of it scared me, but the Robbie the Robot part was really cool. And being a lonely child, I thought what I needed was a robot friend for companionship and protection. And so from that point on, I always had in my mind that I wanted to build a robot, and certainly did enough drawings on paper and collected enough junk over the years to possibly build several robots. But the stumbling block was that no matter how you hooked all this stuff up, the robot had no volition or movement or anything unless it had a brain of some kind. And I guess when I was about 11, I started studying binary logic because this was the basis of computers. Essentially, one very simple operation, yes or no, compounded into many decisions and arrays of decisions that would look like the computer was doing something really brilliant, when all it was doing was deciding yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. The advantage to having at least some passing understanding of this and the associated number system, the binary number system, which is just ones and zeros, gave me a big leg up when I got to high school in an algebra class when they started to introduce the new math and doing mathematical operations in number systems besides 10. Mm-hmm. And I was able to breeze through that, mystified everyone, including my teacher. What further mystified them is I had no interest in any of the other work and so failed every other aspect of the class. But I was able to do any kind of number system, math in any number system. Mm-hmm. So when I was in high school, I had two options. I had already gotten into a band, and I was playing electric guitar by then and had some aptitude at it. And I was terrible at school. I had no grades. My parents had no money. It didn't look like I was going to be able to go to college, but if I went to any kind of school, I might have gone to a technical school to learn how to program computers or get in a band. And fortunately, I got into a band because I didn't have the money to go to technical school, and computers in those days were really boring.
Well, let's talk about a band, the band that most people relate to you as early in the career. You were in Woody's Truck Stop before that, but the Naz, mm-hmm. And we saw the video a little bit ago. Most, it seems to me, young musicians today get into a band thinking they want to be a rock star. I mean, a rock star mm-hmm. is a glorified thing, as it was then, but in a different way.
It's a good enough reason.
Yeah, and I'm sure that there were those kinds of reasons for you too, but I heard you talking to the students. We had a barbecue with Todd over at our nature park, and you were talking about really how you kind of didn't want to sing. I mean, you were a backup singer. You weren't somebody who wanted to be out front early on.
I believe I was trying to make a distinction between the performer and the musician, mm-hmm. and the fact that I always knew that I wanted to be a musician. I wanted to play an instrument. I wanted to be involved in musical productions. I wasn't so sure I wanted to write yet, but the only extracurricular activity I had all through high school was chorus, which was the one that you had to get up really early in the morning for. It was unfair. But I enjoyed singing in the chorus, being part of the chorus, never imagined to be being a soloist. And I thought of myself at the age of 16 or 15 as being a baritone, which I can handle now, but which then I didn't really have the downward range to cover. And Yeah, that was pretty much it. The only musical thing I did that had anything to do with the establishment was being in the chorus. I didn't go to music school. I didn't get any sort of those guitar lessons I mentioned before. I got through about 2 months of them, the minimum that you needed in order to pay for the cheap Korean guitar. and then quit and just started picking up everything by ear.
Okay, so but you're in the NAS, and if you can just explain in a nutshell what that was like. That was a kind of a hyped, semi-manufactured situation. I mean, you guys
Yeah,
were on the
well,
cover
even
of
then,
Teen
you know, we
magazines.
thought that maybe somewhere down the line, you know, getting a record deal or something like that, and international notoriety, wouldn't that be great? That was something in the distant future. The first problem was, you know, how do we wow the people in the neighborhood? So after like 9 months of being in Woody's truck stop, and they all decided to take acid and go to the country and get their heads together, I decided that wasn't for me. I wanted to do a little more hardcore thing with a British influence, so I put together the NAS that was sort of modeled after The Who, maybe a little Beatles and a little Beach Boys, and some Yardbirds as well, but heavy on the jamming and arm flailing and things like that, real showbiz. And we had no material yet. I had yet to write a song ever. Had to realize I had to write some songs, wrote a bunch of guitar songs so we could, you know, flail around. And then I accidentally wrote Hello, It's Me during that period, and it wound up on the first NAS record. Ironically enough, I had quit the band by the time that became a hit record. And so we didn't actually go out and promote it or anything like that. It was an accident. It was actually the B-side of our first single. And it got flipped and got some radio airplay, and that was the first kind of musical success we experienced. But starting out with the NAS, no, the objectives were not to immediately become stars. All we had to do was conquer our neighborhood, and we would have all the sex and the other accoutrements that we could possibly want. Truth be told, probably the only reason why I defied my high school for so long and insisted on having my hair grown out was the conviction that if I looked anything like a Beatle, I would eventually get chased down the street by girls. Because nothing else seemed to be working very well for me. So I said, grow your hair, no brainer.
So the NAS blows up. I mean, you walk away from the NAS. What led to
Well,
that
the
decision?
interpersonal conflicts, the fact that everyone imagined, for instance, that the Beatles was some sort of democratic thing. They never said, or at least, you know, from the Beatles standpoint, or whoever was doing publicity for the Beatles, they never said, this guy is more important than this guy, or more integral than this guy. They're all like equal, and movies, you know, kind of promulgated the same sort of myth that it was just a happy-go-lucky romp, and all the four of them had to do was whatever came naturally, and success followed. And then we discovered, like a mere 3-4 years later, that it's infighting and wife swapping and you know, and acrimony, and the two principal songwriters don't even show up in the same room together, even though it still says Lennon-McCartney. You know, they never sit down and write songs together. It turns out to be more the reality of what a band is, which is some sort of a entente or something like that, some sort of mutual agreement, you know, not to explode before a certain precise moment. And then at that moment, everything goes to hell. And so it was pretty much that with the NAS. You know, we were a bunch of, well, me and Carson Van Austin, we had shared a room together for a long time, so we got along pretty well. But the other two guys we didn't know well, and as time went on, you know, you either become better friends or better enemies. And a lot of that evolved, and then eventually the band broke up over things that had probably less to do with music than they did with interpersonal dynamics.
Okay. And I want to keep moving because we got 42 years to cover, and I want to get questions from the audience.
Certainly.
Before we
I
leave
know,
tonight.
you know.
No,
don't
these
get
are
me
great
started.
stories, and I think everybody
I'll tell
agrees.
everything I know.
And I feel bad. I feel bad cutting you off because I'm enjoying this thoroughly. So you leave the NAS, and I think the thing a lot of people overlook is that you're essentially not a performing musician at this point. You become an engineer. You take on another trade of sorts.
Well, yeah, part of the problem was that I was not ready to step up and be the front man of anything after the Naz left. So the alternative for me, in order to stay involved with music and do something that I liked that had to do with the music business, was to move into the control room, essentially, and produce records for other people. And in the process, I picked up engineering as well, which turned out to be another marketable skill. But more importantly, it was a great asset in terms of production, because I was able to cut out the middleman in terms of sound. Often producers, to be a producer can involve a lot of different aspects. The very first producer I ever had any studio experience with was really old school, in that a producer had no or hardly any creative input. He just made sure that the session didn't run over, because he was more in charge of the budget than he was in charge of any sort of real quality control. That was usually be up to the arranger, and the engineer was in charge of the sound quality. So when I became a producer, it was an asset to be able to engineer and to be able to visualize what a record should sound like, and not have to go through the tortures of hell to get it to sound that way. That is not to diminish the importance of having at least some musical sensibility. And there are producers whose musical sensibility is completely inarticulate. They just say, I like that. That'll be a hit, or I hate that. That won't be a hit. And that's, for some, that's all it takes, Mm-hmm. But my career as a producer has been to kind of like nurse people along. I don't often work with people who are already successful and satisfied. There's either a new artist who has very little or no experience of the studio, or an artist who's hit some sort of cul-de-sac in terms of their record making, and I have to shake them up a little bit to break them out of it. So when I first became a producer, I was strong on the kind of sound aspects and musical aspects, very weak on the sociological and psychiatric aspects. Thinking that if I was a producer, I would get out all that strife that comes with being in a band. No, I inherit the band's strife when they walk into the studio. And have to break people up sometimes and resolve issues musically and sometimes non-musically. Sometimes you have to be the prick so that everyone else can focus on you being the prick and not on each other being the little pricks. And so
we're going to talk about individual productions in a bit, but